So you have your 4 photograms open that you scanned. On the top of your handout it said number 1 to open Photoshop. Did it. File open. Number 2, we did it. Number 3, we're not worried about whether or not these images are turned on their side. So we're going to find our rectangular marquee tool, which is right over here. It's the second tool down. It looks like a box that's made of dotted lines. And we're going to select one photogram to work on today. All right, we're going to take the rectangular marquee tool and we're all going to select the same photogram, which is the penguin. Now, it's scanned crooked. You see that? So we're going to do the best job that we can. We're going to take that rectangular marquee and drag a box around it, and we're going to select it the best that we can, like that. Okay, so if you miss, you do Command D. Command D is going to deselect, and then you try again. Just go ahead and try to grab that one penguin image. So you have these things going around the outside. You guys remember what these are called? They're called marching ants. That's right. So we're going to hold Command and we're going to press C. Everyone do that. Once you have it selected, Command C. Then we're going to hold Command and press N. The letter N is in new. And then we're going to click OK. And then we're going to hold Command and we're going to press the letter V as in Victor. Command V is going to paste it into a new document. Now what I'd like you guys to do is close the original one. We're not going to need that again. If it asks you if you want to save it, definitely say no. So let's go ahead after we have this new document of the penguin. Let's go Image, Image Rotation, and let's go to 90 degrees CCW, which is counterclockwise. And if you do that, now the penguin is facing the right way. All right, we might want to crop this. We're going to take the rectangular marquee tool again, and we're going to try to drag across the image. And we are going to lose some. I don't really want to get into how to crop things like that are crooked. I'm going to lose a little bit of the top in order to make this thing nice and square. So we're going to make a selection of what you want to keep. And now we're going to go to Image, and then we're going to Crop. Image Crop. Now what happens is it cuts off everything that is outside of that area, and then I can go Command D and take a look at what I've done. But one of the cool things about doing things digitally is that you have the ability to go back and change things or fix things. And we all know that as the undo button, right? Everything has an undo button. In Photoshop and Microsoft Word and whatever it is you're using. You want to undo several things that you've done. Like you can think, oh, I did these 15 steps and it looks terrible, I want to go back. You can do this thing called the history palette. So you go to the history palette, which is right here. You guys don't have to follow me over here, but it's here. It's these 3 dotted lines, and there's a little arrow, and it says history when I float over it. When I get the history palette, you can see that Photoshop has recorded the last 15 or 20 or so things that I've done. So if I ever want to go back to when I made the document, the new document, there it is. And I could start and do something else. If I wanted to go back to paste where I rotated the canvas, I did that, I cropped it, I deselected, I cropped it again. You can go back in time if you ever need to. Down here at the bottom of the layers palette, you can see there is a half white and half gray circle that I'm zoomed in on here on the screen. You can click on that, and you're going to choose the one that says levels. Now when we choose a levels adjustment layer, it gives us our histogram, which again is a map of all the dark and light pixels in an image. And we can start to move these things around. We can move mountains here. We're going to brighten it or lighten it, darken it. So we've got the mid-tone slider. If I bring that to the left a little bit, I can see that background a little bit more, that texture. Before we get into the selections, I'd like you all to flatten your image. And flattening an image is something we're going to talk about pretty often in here. And it means we're going to take all these layers and we're going to smash them down into one layer. So the way that you do that is you go up to the top of your screen and you click on Layer. And then you go down to where it says Flatten Image. So everybody go ahead and flatten your image. So all the way down here at the bottom, it says Flatten Image. And now you're going to notice that you now have one layer. Now selections, the way that it works is it allows you to select part of an image rather than the whole thing. One way to make a selection is the way we've already done in here, and that is to use the rectangular marquee. But I also want to show you guys that if you hold your mouse button over the rectangular marquee tool, you can go down and make this into an elliptical marquee tool, which is a circle. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is the lasso tool. So there's another way to make selections, which is just under that circle or the square, and it looks like a lasso, which is what a cowboy would use to go and catch his herd with a rope and swing it around and catch something. So that's kind of how the lasso works. What you do with the lasso is you actually draw shapes. So let's try to draw around this star shape right here in the upper left corner. See where I'm at right here? Go on the lasso tool and try to do this. Hold your mouse button down and draw around the outside of the star. And when you let go, boop, it turns into a selection. So you could actually draw a shape with the lasso tool. Now we're going to go Command D again to get rid of that. It's pretty hard to use, right? Like it's not very easy to use a mouse and make very precise selections. Imagine trying to select these clothespins here, these safety pins. Try to select those with the lasso tool. You're like, oh boy, this ended really badly for me. But there is a way to do, there's a couple other ways to make selections. Those are only two of the ways. There's another tool under the lasso tool. There's actually two of them under the lasso tool. Let's go ahead and find those. So we need to uncover these. So we're going to hold down the mouse button on the lasso tool, and you will see that we have two other types of lassos. You have the polygonal lasso tool, which we're going to use, and the magnetic lasso tool, which we're not going to use. That is just evil, and it does bad things. So we're going to go ahead and choose the polygonal lasso tool. And what that does is it allows you to connect the dots. So let's try to select that same star again in the upper left corner. So I'm going to go ahead and go around this. Here's how this one works. Ready? You click to start the line, and then you come down to where you want to go next, and you click once. And then you go over here and you click, and then you do these little clicks around the outside, and then click. This is great for selecting things that have straight edges. Right? I can do some pretty precise selections with the polygonal lasso tool if I'm good at playing connect the dots. And when you get back to the beginning of the selection where you clicked first, you see that little circle that appears? That little circle means that you're about to close it. So when you click again, you see the marching ants go around the star, and I've done a pretty nice job selecting that star. Let's go ahead and do Command D again. If your polygonal lasso tool goes crazy and it's not letting you do anything, you can press Escape, it will go away. Or if it's marching ants, hold Command and press the letter D and it will go away. One thing we have not talked about in here very much, I think, yet, is the fact that you guys can zoom, okay? If you're looking at the big screen up there and I'm working on this and I'm trying to do all this little detailed stuff, I don't want to be looking at this image from across the street. I want to zoom in and get right up in there so I can see what it is I'm trying to do. So in order to zoom, here's what you need to do. You can use the zoom tool, which is down here at the bottom. It's a magnifying glass. Everybody find the magnifying glass, click once on that. And then when you go over your screen, let's all try to zoom in on the skull that's in the upper right corner. What you're going to do is put your cursor on the skull, and you're going to drag down and to the right. If you drag down and to the right, you're zooming in. If you drag up and to the left, you're zooming out. So we've got pixels on the screen. When you zoom in super close, you could actually see the individual pixels. Or zooming out, we're going to drag up and to the left and move things around. You guys can also make this window bigger. A lot of you've got this giant screen, this monitor you're using, and you got this little tiny box with whatever it is you're working on, and it's like, oh, I'm going to work over here in this little space, and I've got all this farmland out here that I'm not even using. Take this box and make it bigger so that you can zoom in, zoom out, and you can get a good look at whatever it is you're doing. So let's all try to zoom in on the skull. There's another way to zoom too. You just hold Command and press minus, or hold Command and press plus, and that allows you to zoom in. But you don't really have control as to where it zooms when you do that. You're going to want to use the magnifying glass to be a little more precise about how you zoom. We haven't talked about this little guy right here. This one is hiding. It's called the magic wand. So we're going to find the magic wand. Here we go. Fourth tool down in the toolbar Another way to make selections, underneath this weird looking paintbrush, if you hold this down, there's a tool called the magic wand. And what the magic wand tool does is if you click on something, it tries to figure out what you're trying to select. So watch what happens when I click on the skull. I'm just going to click on the skull with the magic wand right on his forehead. Everybody go ahead and do that. Wow, it did all the work for me, right? It selected everything that it thinks you're trying to get. But it missed a couple of spots. So that brings us to the last thing about selections, and that is, how do we add to a selection or take away from a selection? Like, what if I want to select more stuff or less stuff than what I have? In order to select more stuff than what you have, you hold down the Shift key. So everybody hold down the Shift key because it missed a spot. You see this spot down here? It didn't select this, so I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to click on that. And then it gets it. And then it didn't get a little bit of this area over here, so I'm going to hold Shift and try that. I'm going to hold Shift and try that. Look at that. It did a pretty perfect job of getting just that skull. So what does it all mean? What are we trying to do? So you can make selections, you can select things, and then what are you supposed to do to them then? Well, again, it allows us to affect only part of the image, not the entire thing. So if I decide that I want that skull to be pink, let's go ahead and all make the skull pink. Once you have it selected, we are not going to get a color from the color picker and paint it. We're not going to do that because what's going to happen is it's just going to make it solid and you're going to lose a lot of what was there. We're going to colorize it. We're not going to color it. We're going to colorize it. Here's how you do that. Everyone go to the top of your screen, go to Image, then go to Adjustments, and then go to where it says Hue Saturation. Now what we're going to do is we're going to colorize it. So we're going to click this little button down here that says Colorize. You have to check this box. Click on the box. And then what you can do is you can change the hue. The hue is just a fancy word for color. You can change the color. So we're going to go for like a pink. Everyone drag to where the pink is. Now saturation, that is just how intense it is, right? If it's really dull and desaturated, it's black and white. If it's really full saturation, you could start to see the color. So everyone, go ahead and pump up the saturation to about 75 or so, and you're going to start to see the pink appear. But it's not coloring the whole thing, it's colorizing it. So where it's light, it's still light, and where it's darker, it's still darker pink. We're changing the color, but we're not changing the value. Now, the skull is relatively light, so you can see here on the screen that it really isn't coloring that much. If I want to make it color more, I need to play around with lightness. Now, before you guys do that with lightness, you don't want to use lightness too much. So just drag it a little bit to the left to make it a little bit darker, and you start to see more of that nice pink color. All right, let's go ahead and color something else. Now, what I like to do to get through this, you don't have to color every single little individual object. Sometimes it doesn't even make sense. Sometimes we're just going to grab like a big shape. So let's all take the circle tool, the elliptical marquee tool, go back up to this one, find your elliptical marquee tool, and let's go ahead and drag a circle around like a big section of this. So I'm going to get like the safety pins and the stars and part of the penguin. See where my selection is, this big circle right here? And then I'm going to go ahead and go to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, click Colorize, or check the box that says Colorize, make whatever hue that I want, move the saturation around, and if I want to, I could move lightness a little bit and make it a little bit more colorful. So I'm going to go ahead and make that whole section like this yellowish green color. Then you click OK, and you deselect. You can't really make a wrong move with colorizing because you can easily just go over it. If I make another selection, like for instance, if I just put like a strip through here, like I go like this and make a big shape like that, I'm going to use my polygonal lasso tool to make this big shape. I can then go to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, and it's going to change for me. When I check Colorize, it's going to go back to whatever color I currently have selected. I make that purple. If you hold Option and you click on something, it takes away from the selection. So Shift click adds to it, Option click takes away from it. Command D deselects it entirely. All right, so we've got the photogram mostly colored. And what we're going to do now is called manipulating the photogram. So we're going to use things called filters. And what filters do is they add special effects to the image. So we can make this look like it's behind some stained glass. We can make it look like it's underwater. We can make it look like it's chrome or metal. So there's different filters that you can use, or different combinations of filters that you can use in order to make this look a little bit more interesting. I'm going to go ahead and I'll use the polygonal lasso tool, and I'll do that thing where I just kind of grab like a strip of this. So I'm going to go across like that, and you can see my marching answer right here. So it's showing this is the area that I have selected, which means this is the area that I'm going to affect. Now if you don't select anything, it's going to do the filter to the entire project. And the idea here is that I want to see that you guys have colored the thing with different colors, and I want to also see that you have used different filters in different areas. All right, so we selected the area we want to change. Number 3, we're going to go up to the top of the screen, and we're going to go to Filter, and we'll go to Filter Gallery. Now what happens is this big giant menu comes up. So when I look at your screen, I should see this big giant menu. You can use one filter, but you can also pile filters on top of one another and create your own filters. Let's all go ahead and stay together for this first one, and then I'll let you guys go off into the chocolate factory and choose your favorite. Just don't fall into the chocolate river. You'll die like that kid that gets sucked up into the tube. You guys know what I'm talking about? He doesn't die? You know, we don't want to believe that the kids die in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, but I gotta believe that they're dead. Right? Like, I used to be like, holy cow, this is a nightmare. That kid is dead. All right, we're going to go ahead. We've got artistic, we've got distort. We're going to choose the one that says distort. So let's go ahead and click this little down arrow next to the folder that says distort. And let's go ahead and use the one that says glass. And what's going to happen is it's going to show you like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this look weird, right? So you click on glass. Now, next to glass, you got to distort and then glass. And then next to glass, over to the right here, you've got all these little things that you can do with the glass. So you could choose what kind of texture you want. Right now we've got frosted glass. We can go to canvas glass. We can go to blocks of glass. Blocks of glass is kind of cool. And then look at what happens when you go to scaling. If you turn the scale up, the blocks get bigger. If you turn the scale down, the blocks get smaller. So we could turn the scale up or down. You could also choose the amount of distortion you want. You could turn the distortion up and it gets really crazy, and then you could turn it down and it doesn't get as crazy. Depends on what you want to do. You could change the smoothness. Let's see what that does. It kind of makes the effect go away a little bit, so it makes it a little bit more subtle if you turn it up. If you turn it down, it is less smooth. So I like the way that looks. Now, before you do anything, okay, so we just clicked on glass, and if you're not exactly there, I guess it's okay. But I want you to see that, first of all, you choose a folder, then you choose an effect, and then after you choose that effect, you can edit that effect, and now you can also add other effects to it. So look here on the bottom, look at my TV up there at the screen. You can see here it's showing you that I've added a glass filter. Now, if I poke this little thing in the eye right here, if I poke it in the eye goes away and the filter goes away. If I click that box again, it comes back. So you can see what it looked like before and after. If you want to see what filters are doing, you could poke them in the eye. Now also, there's this little symbol down here. Look at my TV. Who remembers what that thing does? A new layer. So if I click on this, what I'm going to get is a new effect layer. Watch my screen. Ready? I'm going to click on this, and I get double glass. So now I've got glass and glass. So you can see here that it's doing that filter twice. But the cool thing is you don't probably want to do the same filter twice. What I might want to do now is I might want to choose another filter. So everybody go down on the bottom of your screen next to the trash can and make another glass filter. So you click on the little new effect layer. Some of you are already lost in the chocolate tube. You already got sucked away in the factory. But just come back. I'll rescue you. We'll get you unstuck. Now what you can do is you can choose another filter. So I can go to, let's say I'm going to go to artistic, and I'm going to go, well, what does it look like if it's neon glow and it's glass? Ooh, right? It's neon glow and it's glass. And I've got these other effects that I can do. I could turn the glow size up or down and it does some weird things. I could turn the brightness up or down. I can change the color of the glow, which does stuff. And maybe I don't like that. Maybe I don't like the way that neon glow and glass look together. So what can I do? And throw it away, or click on the trash rather. All right, so you can see what it did. It applied the filter to that selection. So what you guys are going to do with your photogram now is you're going to select areas and color it. Then you're going to select areas and use filters on it. And then when we all get back together again, we're going to combine, we're going to do 2 of these, okay? So if you're done with one, you're going to open another one and start the whole process again. And we'll meet up when you have 2 of these completed. Okay, so what we're going to do here is just kind of watch the second part of this. We're fast forwarding here to the point where we have 2 photograms done. And I'm going to go ahead and just show you one more thing with the filters. So this one's already colored. And I'm going to go ahead and just make a selection like this. And I'm going to go up to the top of the screen. And what you have to be careful of is that when you go back up to filter, you don't choose this filter gallery. You choose this filter gallery, because this one is going to just repeat a filter. I'll show you. If I click on this, it doesn't take me in a filter gallery. It just does what I did last time, which I don't want that to happen. I want to do something different. So you go to filter and you go down to this filter gallery, and then it will take you back into this menu, which will begin with the same thing that we had before, which I did paint daubs. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just go to distort, or maybe I'll go to stylize. We'll do some glowing edges. Why not? All right, so I'm going to do glowing edges as my filter. It applies that filter. I deselect, and let's just say that that is finished. What I want to do next is I want to flatten it. Now, what it says on your handout, it says you might want to ask me before you flatten an image, because once you flatten it, you're pretty much saying, okay, this is good and I'm done with it. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten it right now. Go up to the top of the screen, go to Layer, Flatten Image, and then now I just have one layer. If I had multiple layers, now I just have one. And I'm going to bring my other photogram open, this one right here. So the idea here is that we have 2 photograms. Now watch, this is probably the most interesting part of what we're going to do with these. You're going to take your 2 photograms and you're going to combine them into one new design. So you're going to get all kinds of surprises when this happens. In order to do this, you're going to have both of them open side by side, which I do right here. They both have to be flattened. We're going to grab the Move tool. Remember, the Move tool is the arrows right here. We've used this before. You're going to take this photogram and you're going to just drag it and drop it onto the other one. So now you're not trying to do this. You're just watching this right now. We drag it and drop it on top of the other one. I'm going to go ahead and close that one. Now it's on top of the other one, but maybe it's not quite, it doesn't quite fit right. So you want to move it around. And then do you guys remember how to transform something? Do you remember from your visual interest sheet, how do we do that? Command T. So I'm going to go Command T, and what I told you is you always want to hold Shift when you resize. In the case of a photogram, it really doesn't matter if I hold Shift. I mean, if you stretched out the stars a little bit, it would be okay. So I'm going to make sure that it fits over the entire other photogram. So now it looks like I just have this one, and the other one's gone. Well, the other one's underneath there. You see this right here? I've got layer 1 on top of this layer, so you can't see this one because that one's on top of it. Now let me show you a couple ways that you can combine them together. They're all right here in the Layers palette. The first one is called a blend mode. That's the coolest one, so we're going to save that one. The next one is called opacity, and the third one is called fill. Fill and opacity are pretty much the same thing. So watch what happens when I take down the fill. When I turn down the fill on this top layer, what do you guys see happening? This one becomes more transparent on the top, so what's it showing you? It's showing you the one underneath. So I can adjust how much of this top one that I see. Blend modes, that's the cool one. Opacity pretty much does the same thing. I'm going to turn that down and you get to see the bottom one through the top one. Now what I'm going to do is this thing called a blend mode. So if I change it on normal, it's just normal. But if I change it to any of these things, it's going to change the way that it combines these 2 images together. So watch what happens when I click on screen. See that? But if I click on, let's say, difference, it does something very different. If I click on subtract, it does some weird stuff. Each one of these things is going to do something different. Color dodge, multiply, that doesn't really work for this. So probably something like lighten is kind of cool, right? And then you could also control how much of that you see. So now what you have is you have two photograms that are blended together into this new abstract design. Okay? So what you're going to do is create a new colorful abstract design with filters on it, and you're going to combine those two things together from some of those original photograms that you made. Okay? All right, we're almost out of time. So you guys can go ahead and basically what you need to do is color two of them, filter two of them, and then combine two of them together to make this new thing, and then get credit for doing the demo.
Thanks for watching. Like, there's like a little button that they put on the laptop or something, and then they say click it, and then you can never even miss a video.
That's if you subscribe.